You are listening to The Ben Keech Show, where every day the objective is simple. Ben will never stop fighting the fight and lighting the light on topics that affect you every day.
Well, what's going on, everybody? My name is Ben Keech. This is The Ben Keech Show in a different atmosphere, in a different state, in a different city. Not really that big of a deal, but it's in Kansas City. It's in Missouri, and I've got a bunch of people snuggled up on a couch next to me. So let me introduce these fine fellows here. So we have Stephen Keech. There's maybe a relation there. What's Wrong with Keeches will be another episode later if you don't like this episode. Bret Keech, my son, you've seen him before. He's basically a regular. We have Daniel Keech, they're brothers, if anybody wants to know. Then we have like the stepchild of the family sitting on the couches here. Zack Humrichouse is joining us today and bringing his intelligence to the table. So anyway, guys, we are going to get going. This is episode 80. 80 episodes ago, I started this whole adventure, and I was actually scrolling through YouTube, and sometimes I forget about the things I've talked about. Perna, my fine video guy, is probably the only one that's seen every episode. I forget half the episodes I've even done. So check those out, subscribe, follow, do all those sorts of things that help the cause, and let's get going. So we are going to kind of delve into some controversial, spiritual kind of God and purpose and stuff. And I'm going to start with a question. I'm going to let anybody answer it. I'm going to give you the title a little bit later because this is going to go a couple different directions. I'm just going to let this kind of evolve, and we're going to see what you guys think. So a statement for you guys is that bad things happen to good people. Bad things happen to good people. Is that fair? How do you look at that? How do you think God looks at that? Bad things happen to good people. Who wants to explain your thoughts on the justification of that, or why that stuff happens?
Yeah, Ben, for me, that brings up kind of a classic philosophical debate when you're talking about if there is a God or a cosmic entity or not. Is that God morally just or moral? Or some would say he's a sadist, because if he's all powerful, that means he's purposefully using his power in order to cause other people harm, and that includes good people. But I think that could be a testament to potentially there not being a God. Not saying there is or isn't, but I'm just saying, in my view, right, that suggests that, because I cannot personally wrap my head around how there could be an almighty power who would consciously harm people in general, whether they're good or not, let alone good people. Okay.
Just for the sake of, like, you know, the average person in sixth grade, can you define sadist for us, just to make sure? What does that mean when you say God may be a sadist? What are you saying there? Explain that.
Yeah, when I say sadist, I mean someone who takes pleasure out of acting cruelly or causing pain or harm to others, other beings.
What do you guys think about that? Is that how do you view God in the way Zach was describing that? You can either respond to Zach or answer or wrap your head around bad things happening to good people.
I would say I think bad things happen to everyone. That's kind of just a part of life. And I think whatever bad things are happening, I think there is, most every time there's, at least I try to look at it this way, there's always a positive spin to something happening, whether that helps you grow for the next time, or you make this choice, something bad happens, whether that's completely fair or not. You know that maybe if you make that same choice again, the same bad thing will happen, or whatever's happening, that bad things are going to happen, whether it's your fault or not. But I think there's learning experiences in a lot of bad things, or just personal growth, whether you made the wrong choice, made the right choice, something bad still happened. It's just a part of life. And I think getting over those bad things will make you a better person and will help you in the long run.
Okay. What else?
Yeah, I think I can add to that. God, it's absolutely necessary that, bad things are going to happen. It's what's called the inevitable, right? Like, you're not going to go through life and nothing bad is going to happen to you. But it's, how you adjust, how you learn from it, making mistakes. If it's something bad that happens just to you, that's out of your control, that's just out of your control. And, God puts gaps in your life. He puts challenges ahead of you, because it's a test for you. He wants to see how you react. He wants to see how you grow from it. And you have to look at those things as a growing experience, right? God isn't purposely, I don't believe God does things purposeful. He doesn't say, oh, something bad hasn't happened to you in a while, so tomorrow I'm going to make sure something bad happens to you. It's just kind of, it's how things go. And God looks at it as, how are you going to react to it? Are you going to adjust, or are you just going to fold and say, woe is me? But that's just kind of one point. That's how kind of I look at it.
See, I agree with both of you guys on that point. And I think that's like the best mindset that you can take, that when you're faced with challenges in life, like the only way to really respond is to rise to the challenge and to overcome them. But to me, that still does not satisfy the question of God's intent behind that. And I will also bring up the point that, we talk about challenges, but some challenges to me are so unfair and so insurmountable that, are they even challenges, or is it just like unfairly determining your fate? Like, for example, if you have a brain aneurysm right now on this couch and you die, that's not a challenge that you can overcome. You're gone. Or if you get hit by a drunk driver and you die, that's also not a challenge that you can overcome. And that's also like a double negative. Like, that ruins potentially another person's life and other people's life too, as well as your own life. That's like, in my mind, like total net negativity. And I think it's hard for me to find any sort of like redemption, at least from the point of view of a God in that. If any of you guys have any thoughts, like thinking about stuff like that.
I think the redemption in that way, obviously those things are just completely negative and bad, but I think the only way would be the people's family who are affected. Like, let's say one of my best friends was killed in drunk driving or something like that. And then I made it one of my life's goals to help people who are battling with alcohol addiction or stuff like that. And then, as someone, obviously, if you're the one who got killed or got permanently injured and you're whatever, you can't do anything about that. But I think other people who are affected indirectly could do things that end up helping society in the long run.
Absolutely. I agree.
What do you think God's then purpose for allowing bad things to happen?
Oh,
what's his intent?
That's a great question. That's why I'm asking y'all, because I don't know. I wish I knew.
So let me ask you this. So you have a dad?
I do.
Okay. You like him?
I do.
Okay.
Love him.
Perfect. Okay. So to make sure there wasn't like a drunk driving story I was walking into, so I don't get in trouble. Sorry. So if has he made decisions that you've disagreed with?
Oh, absolutely. Every day. And I'm sure I've made decisions that he disagrees with.
Every day. Wow. You have a lot of grace then. But anyway, so it's like, seriously? So not even in every other day? Really? Every day he screws up. It doesn't matter. That's cool. That's fine. So he says or does things that you've disagreed with or that you thought was wrong or whatever. And okay, fair. Have there been things that he has said or done that in the moment that you thought was wrong or that you disagreed with that later you've come to and maybe even someday as a dad, you've come to a different conclusion? Has that ever happened?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's dad, right?
So is it possible that, and I'm going to say the God of the universe has more insight and knowledge in terms of what ends up happening to us and what ends up not happening to us? In the bigger picture, he knows, we know just this little finite place, we know this, we know this thing. Because I would actually say, so, I mean, obviously you can think of the stuff that's happened down in Texas with the mudslides and the flooding and all of these people dying and kids. And I mean, there's just no way to, it just makes you question everything. You know, I mean, what's fair, and these little kids, and I mean, it's all so horrible. And so it's like, why would God let that happen or allow that to happen? I mean, if we go back from a theological sense for a second, you know, original sin changed everything. So from a biblical Christian worldview, death, pain and pregnancy, all of the things that, you know, all of a sudden they're wearing clothes, you know, there's a free nature, and all of a sudden they're ashamed, and they have all these things that are happening in their heads about life. That's because of sin. So basically it was warned to us, there's going to be bad things that are going to happen. God's not a puppeteer saying, you know, used to be able to kind of look like this. Like if you have a string of bad luck in your family, well, you're obviously doing a lot of things wrong. I mean, we're throwing Jonah over the, but you know, we're throwing Jonah in the ocean. I mean, it's because you are evil. But what we've come to find out is that, and think about this, what would be a definition of somebody who's prideful? Just as I'm going to connect it in a second. What's a definition of pride? Someone's a prideful person, a proud person. What would be that? What would be a basic definition of that? Or tell me what that person looks like, a proud person. Anybody? What is that?
I mean, I think a proud person, you know, they take intentionality with what they do. You know, they take pride in what they do.
Okay.
And they, you know, they think what they're doing is, you know, what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
And if they're good at it, you know, they're proud of themselves for doing it. And that could be obviously in many different things. You know, a cook, if he's good at cooking, he takes pride in it. And if somebody's not good at something, say as an athlete, you know, you start playing soccer and you're terrible, but you want to get better. So you have to take pride in, you know, getting better. And you can't start from the beginning and think you're terrible. You're not going to move on. A person who's proud, you know, they you know, they look themselves in the mirror, and you know, they know they're working. They know that they're doing something that's good, and you know, they're just an overall, you know, they're positive about what they're doing.
Okay. Do women want to date men who are proud or prideful?
It depends what they're prideful on.
Just generally, just their general thing. Do women want to date? Is it more attractive to a woman to date a man who is humble or a man who's prideful?
Humble.
Okay. So I'm not talking about confidence. I'm not talking about believing yourself. I'm talking about pride in the sense of a level of arrogance that the average person might find repugnant. Okay. So we understand that, right? Okay. If something bad happens to me, so I'm 16 years old, my mom dies. Is that fair? Do I understand it? Of course not. Of course not. If I, for 1 second, look at God and judge God for that to say, oh, you could have saved her, you could have done this, what is that an example of?
Pride. And I would say, I also think that's pride, because I don't think a human has any sort of chance of being able to perceive God's intentions, whether it's in their favor or not. So I think it's prideful to try to speak for God in any sense.
I agree. And I may not go so far as like any, I think there's things that God can reveal to us to have sometimes a comprehension and understanding. But that is the point. The point is that we think of pride as arrogance or these things, but pride can be the most like passive, like unassuming. Pride is when you are putting yourself first. It's not fair that all these things happen to me. Pride. We look at pride as like an Andrew Tate pride. That's obvious. I mean, that makes sense. But pride is also the meekest, quietest person in the room could be just as prideful, because it's all about, anytime it's all about you, that's pride. And that person doesn't have to be flamboyant about it. And so I think when it comes to the question of bad things happening to good people, you're right. We don't understand everything about God and his decisions, how this works. It doesn't make sense all the time. But I will always kind of rest in the idea that I am small, God is not. God has an understanding of things that I don't, and I just choose to trust because God is too big, so I don't understand everything, but I trust like the things that happened to Job in the Bible, like horrible things after horrible thing, and he just faith in God, faith in God. It didn't deter who he was, and it just, man, I don't know what to do, but I'm just, just kept living his life. He wasn't crying about it. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm not judging people who don't have understandings of bad things, but I think that, like, think about it like this. You guys nobody in this room except for me and Perna over here have been in like long relationships. But it's kind of, I feel like God probably views it like that. When you're in a relationship and you have this struggle, you're going through this hard time or whatever, and you come through it, there's a strength in that relationship. There's like, okay, like we survive, there's something that builds, which is kind of what you guys are. There's something that builds through those hard times. So, I don't know. Okay. Any other thoughts? I got something else for you on this one. Are we good so far? So
that's a great point.
So on the, so what do we think of like what does God want from us? Like, what's God doing? Like, why are we even here? Like, what's the purpose of humans? And like, how do we like wrap our head around like, what's even going on here actually? Like what do you guys ever just think about these things? I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just like, what? I mean, doesn't it sometimes just become a lot to wonder about sometimes? You guys ever like have those like, I don't know, any of those type. What do you guys think? What is God doing? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? You guys, what's the connection here?
Yeah, I can definitely attest to this. God is, what are we doing here? That's like, we've all thought that at one point or another. I know when I first had those thoughts in my head, I was just I ran away from it. I was like, no, like, we're here for a reason. It was just kind of what I told myself. And each individual, we're all here for a different reason. But, I believe in a calling, and, I believe that, God already rewrote the whole story. He already knows how the book ends. And over the course of your life, there's going to be these defining moments, right? And through those defining moments, you find your purpose. So I think God's intent is for, each person of humanity to eventually find a purpose in life. And some people choose to run away from what their purpose actually is. And, they're, either too afraid, or they just don't want to, or they ignore their purpose. And I think, God's idea of humanity was to give everybody that freedom, to, live a life of joy, live a life of love and giving. But it's a pretty broad thought. It's definitely a scary thought. I mean, I'm sure anybody who has faith has had that thought, like, what are we doing here? What is my purpose? But I think, I believe God's always working. He's always moving things. But at the end of the day, like, he already wrote the end of the book. So
let me ask Daniel this, especially with your connection and what you've been doing in your life the last couple of years. Like, have you had any moments in what you've been doing since high school where you've like seen God or wondered about God or like thought about these things? You're out of a little bubble of high school. Now you've been an adult for the last couple of years. How has that impacted you and your look at God?
Right. So, I mean, joining the Marine Corps, I would hope you understand that, like, in my position, it comes here and there. Like, sometimes you'll fall out of the loop and you'll get right back into it. But
what does it mean to fall out of the loop? What does that mean?
Just because, like, I would say it's hard to maintain faith in my job. I mean, obviously, you do what you can, but at the end of the day, I always come back to it. But yeah, I mean,
why is it sometimes hard to maintain?
Just like the different types of people you meet all around the country. Everyone comes from a different place,
right?
And so you experience a lot of different types of people,
right?
But yeah.
So does faith within some of the guys in the Marines, is it something that's talked about? Does it come up, or is it kind of avoided, or how do you see that coming up?
All right. So usually, like when you're in high school, you're always told by your parents, surround yourself by the right people. Find that small group. But I would say, like in the Marine Corps, you don't really have that choice because you're kind of put together.
Right.
And like that's who you got.
Right.
And so, like for example, the group of guys that I'm with, like I have like 3 atheist friends, a couple Christians, Catholics, and then like a few Jewish people.
Right.
And so like all of that into one group of people, everyone has their own views. It's hard to like find a person or a couple people that have the same views as you and kind of attack it together, if that makes sense.
What's the best question to ask an atheist? After a couple beers, it gets even better.
After a couple beers?
Sure. Yeah. Why not? We ask women questions that we shouldn't after a couple beers. We can at least ask an atheist that. Okay.
It'd probably be pretty graphic, to be honest.
No, seriously, what's a question? Everybody should know the answer to this. This is like, what's a question? The best question to ask an atheist.
So there's a right and a wrong answer.
Right.
Is what you're saying?
Yeah. There's a lot of questions you can ask an atheist.
Yeah, of course.
I'm just thinking of one. I was just curious if anyone
one.
Get in my head and know what I'm trying to say. I don't know.
How do you think we're here?
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay.
Where did you come from?
Not so deep.
Okay, not so deep. So just
where'd you
more
come
casual.
from? Like, or what's your purpose?
Okay. You guys are also, you guys are right. Actually, like, where do you come from?
Yeah.
Like all of these things, it's something even more basic. That's even more unassuming, because if I ask, well, where do you come from then? What am I doing by that tone that I don't want to do to an atheist or anybody for that matter?
Belittle their own belief.
Yeah, I don't want to put them on the defensive.
Yeah.
So if you're actually curious about their thoughts, then what's the best question to ask them?
What do you
One
believe
word.
in? One
Not,
word?
not a what. What is fine, but a better word.
You said one word, but a question.
Why?
Why?
Explain. I want to understand. I want to know. You're not saying it to argue. You're not saying. You're saying it to gain information. The best thing that you can do for anyone who thinks anything different is ask them to explain it to you.
Right.
You're against abortion. You're talking about someone's forward. Well, no, just tell me. I'm just curious. Why you're okay? That's cool. I was just curious. No, I think I understand where you're coming from. You don't even have to argue. They're like, wait a second. They're about to shoot me down. They're like you don't want to put them on the defensive. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't take it another step. Drink a couple more beers and come up with some better questions. But the point is that if you in your heart have a genuine curiosity for why, like in your why is someone's an atheist? Like I think we're afraid to ask these. We're afraid to even have I'm not saying you are, Danny. I'm just saying we're afraid to have the conversations. Why? Explain. I'd love to know, and not no gotcha moments. No, like, well, you're not ready to argue anything that they say.
I have a response for that because that's something.
Why?
I feel like I think about.
Sorry.
Yeah. Why? No, I think about that a lot because I feel like I meet lots of different people from many different walks of life, and they naturally have many different belief systems, kind of like Daniel just said about all his boys in the Marines. I think you almost have to be really, really careful because when you kind of ask, like you said, Ben, those accusatory and questions, you run the risk of invalidating someone's purpose, like what they feel like they are on this earth to be and like why they think they exist. And I feel like that is such like a profound and powerful like feeling for a person, regardless of what you believe. Every person kind of has it, like we were talking about, like with a purpose that like for your own good, you almost instinctively go into defense mode because like if you let that purpose be like shaken by someone else so easily, I think that it would cause you a lot of harm, like psychological and spiritual harm.
Well, it definitely could. And I think that you can ask, I could turn around and ask a Christian, why are you a Christian? Mm-hmm. And you know what? You may get a variety of answers. You may not even get like gospel centered answer. You may or may not. A lot of, and I think the point is like, what I would hope if I was asking an atheist, maybe they'll ask me, well, why are you a Christian? Yeah, I mean, that's what when anybody asks us a question and gives us the respect and courtesy to ask us something, ask them something back. Find out about them. Like, don't make it a one-way street. But that's the whole point. You genuinely care and want to know about somebody else, and perhaps they will about you. Maybe they'll want to know. And then maybe if you're, maybe you'll speak of something related to Christ. It's like, oh, I never thought about that. Or the reason why I don't think I've told this story on podcasts before, but I've said it to different people, but I had some atheist kids back when I was a teacher who approached me to start an atheist club. And I said, I'd love to. And I said, I'll be the sponsor. And she went to the principal, told the principal, I want to do this atheist club. I already sponsored the Christian club. And the principal immediately emailed me, called me down to the office. His name was Dick. I mean, I don't know, just what it is. I don't know. Just his name. I'm not his mom. I'm not his dad. And he, it's just these things. And he chewed me out. And he's like, you of all people, Christian club guy, sponsor an atheist club. I was like, I would love to sit down in a room with 20 atheist kids and learn and listen. And of course I'm not an atheist. And of course if they allow me to engage in conversation, I'll explain why I'm not an atheist. But the atheist kids actually enjoy those conversations. They're not as hard-headed as some might think, but he shot down the club, wouldn't do it. There's atheist club in our school. And I said, all right, Dick, whatever, that's fine, whatever, that's fine, Kramer. This is how this stuff goes. And so, anyway, any other, have you guys had any experiences? We're just trying to be respectful people. That's at the end of the day. That's kind of, and be curious and respectful.
Yeah. Before any of you guys answer too, I kind of want to just add on to that.
Yeah.
That's something that I feel like I am really trying to personally work on, because I feel like I'm very conscientious about being equally respectful and curious about other people's beliefs. But again, I'm so guilty of this myself and I feel horrible about it, but I feel like it's just so easy for every sort of theological or philosophical conversation to turn into a debate.
Yes.
And then just you're going back and forth. And at first it may start off as like a respectful and insightful conversation, even when it's with your friends and family, but so quickly can it jump into something more than that. And yeah, I feel like, Ben, if everybody had that mentality and strive to simply connect and understand other people, that we would collectively as a species, as the human race, get a lot farther than we are now.
There's an art to communication to not put someone on the defense. And that's really, because I will tell you also though, I don't believe that everybody's opinion is true. I don't believe that it's impossible for every religion to be actually true. It's impossible. Atheism and Christianity can't both be true. It's impossible. If Hinduism believes and is polytheistic and Judaism is monotheistic, unless if you want to say, well, whatever I believe is true, well, that's not true. That's an impossibility. You can have the right to believe what you want to believe, and you can you can start your own thing. You can do whatever, you can worship, whatever you want to worship. That's the beauty of it. But not everything. Islam believes that God rescued Jesus off the cross, actually pulled Jesus off the cross and let him go straight to heaven because they believe Jesus was a prophet. Well, either did that, or he rose from the dead, or he's this, or he's, all these little things can't all be true. So my point in saying that isn't so now I'm kind of talking against myself. It's creating the atmosphere of respect and curiosity. And then when there is something that's, you have a hard-hitting statement or something you believe in, you've already established we're all good here, guys. We're but you can still, you don't have to be a wuss about it. You don't have to be well, everything everybody believes. We don't have to say incorrect things to appease the masses. That's actually the problem with politicians and a lot of people, honestly, is the appeasing mentality. So anyway, any thoughts about that? Any other thoughts about that, guys?
I would first say, I think it's really cool of you to be aware of, you want to be respectful. You don't have to agree, but you can have a respectful conversation about it. I personally, I've met a few atheists, one more outgoing than the other. And personally, in that experience of mine, it was from the jump, it was a debate because I didn't start the conversation. And I was just automatically looked down upon, and the questions I was being given were, derogatory personally. And it was just kind of like, it was disrespectful from the jump. And that's just a specific scenario, right? But I think, like the questions I was getting was basically just like, why do you believe that? Oh, you're dumb. Like, that's not true. And it was just kind of just telling me I'm wrong the whole time. And it wasn't a back and forth, respectful conversation. And I think at the end of the day, it shouldn't be hard to do that. And it should be easy to have a respectful conversation because, you're going to go through life, especially in college. Like, you're not going to meet people like you all the time. Like, it's inevitable. You're going to meet. I was on a baseball team. My first couple years, it was half people were from out of the country and half the people were from America. And all of them, we all have different beliefs. And most of those conversations, it's soothing to find somebody who thinks the way you do. But, I personally, I love to hear the opposite because I like to bounce my own ideas off of other people. But I do like how you're aware and you just want to have a normal conversation. So,
yeah, right back at you.
In my early, Christian apologetics is something that if you want to study and understand how to defend the Christian faith, then you need to read up. So I spent my 20s just like diving into, the moon is located where it's at. It affects the tides and the way that it is. So we even have life, or there's just the science, the history, all of the different things that you can have conversations with if you're a Christian, that's something you want to do to defend the Christian faith. Doesn't mean you have to walk around and tell everybody, but it's like when you're in those I did not want to be in those conversations to be unprepared. I wanted to be able to have an answer. I wanted to be able to have a conversation and be looked at as intelligent at the end of it. A trick thing I did one time was at a wedding. This is when I was dating your mom, and there was this he was an evolutionary biologist, college kid getting his graduate work, and we're at a wedding, and I'm talking, and he had spent time in the Galapagos Islands and doing all these things, and he did not know my beliefs, and I actually started asking him questions. So I would say to him, so what do you what would you say to some Christian who says blah 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 blah? He's like, we don't even recognize that or whatever. I would say, so what it would, and I basically was trying to pick an intelligent man's mind on all the things that he may or may not say. So I knew what one of the smartest people would say. And between you and me, he didn't have much. The bottom line, he didn't want to debate. He didn't have a lot of answers for the things I was saying. But I could only get that information if I was on his side. And so I just played it all. I just literally played it off the entire time. And he talked forever. But I was like, okay, well, I'm doing okay. If I can hang with this smart guy, okay, then I kind of know where I stand. And that was my objective, is just see where I stood and knowledge about evolution and creation and what does a biologist say, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, guys, this has been good. We probably have to wrap up episode 80. I hope to live to 80. I'm going to live to 100, I think. But we'll see if I get 100 episodes in. There we go. Guys, thank you. This was amazing. We are going to have in the show notes their Instagram handles. And if you want to follow them, we always love, comments on the YouTube channel, or people reach out to me through Facebook and different things. So I appreciate that. We obviously enjoy the conversation, and thanks for tuning in to episode 80. You guys have a lovely day. Talk to you next time. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Let's keep the conversation going. You can reach out on Ben's website, www.benkeechshow.com, or on social media to chat. And please remember to subscribe so that you never miss an episode.